Look, if you master the skill, you will never need my channel. The point of this channel is to get you to this point. Master being alone, you pretty much master yourself, because that's the last thing the human animal wants to be, because we're a social animal. Talk about transcending nature. So before we begin, purchase our upcoming course, Emotional Mastery. It should be out today, but we're gonna have to delay it for another 4 or 5 days, because there's a lot of things that still needs to get done. But this video is pretty much the aim of that course, to be quite honest with you. It's all about learning how to be alone without needing people. Like, if you do that, you're willing to walk away. If you do that, nobody can manipulate you. If you do that and you're in prison, you're not afraid to fight, because you're not afraid of going into solitary confinement. So all you to be prisoners out there that are watching my channel, that are watching this video, this is perfect for you. And don't forget, we're having a seminar in London at the end of the month, at the end of July. And if you guys want to work with me one-on-one and you want to master this skill, click on the description down below to work with me one-on-one. Let's begin with the video. You see, self-reliance is the most attractive trait anyone could develop. Why? Not because it's sexy, but because of what it says about you. You are able to survive in any environment. You are able to adapt. You're able to survive a drought. You're able to survive being alone in an island. And as a result, that's valuable for other people. And so evolutionarily, the brain wires you to become attracted to those traits, because those traits lead to survival, self-reliance, right? So that means if you're a woman, you have a kid, and the husband goes away, that self-reliance will allow you to keep his kids alive and pass on his genes. So that's attractive to a man. But if you're a woman and the guy is self-reliant, then that means that he's forever gonna be able to support you guys, because he's able to adapt. So it goes in every direction. If you're with a boss who's self-reliant, you're gonna be able to feel more comfortable around your boss, because your boss knows how to adapt, right? And so that's where being alone comes in, because being alone, learning to be alone, is pretty much the ultimate test of self-reliance. You rely on yourself and yourself only. You understand that nobody's going to be there for you to back you up, and that nobody's going to give you that cushion. That, in fact, you don't want that cushion, right? So that means that when you think about losing your job, when you think about losing someone, losing a romantic partner or a family member, you are afraid from a place of strength. You know, Mike Tyson was afraid before he fought, but that fear was a fear that came from strength, right? So you might be afraid to lose someone, but that fear is from a place of strength. It's not a weakening where your knees shackle together. So by being dependent on others, pretty much you close yourself off to opportunity. That's why becoming reliant on people completely, you lose your powers a lot of times. Your mind limits its thinking. It limits your thinking. You become less creative. You have no freedom of thought. In addition, this causes people to control you as well. They'll give you what you want, and they can use that as a smokescreen to manipulate you, because it clouds your perception of them. You rely on them so much that you cannot see them as they are, essentially. So you have to realize is that you're alone. You are alone at the end of the day. You have to stop depending on others. Feel the fear of being alone, because it's a reality. It is fearful to be alone, and you don't want to suppress those feelings. You want to feel them as much as possible, because the more you feel them, the more in touch with reality you become. Right? It's a reality, and it liberates you. Even though it hurts, it liberates you. You feel the fear, and you have no choice but to survive. Right? So somebody leaves you, you lose your job. Feeling that fear will only, if you allow yourself to feel it, it'll propel you to action if you have the right attitude. Right? It'll propel you to action if you see it from the right point of view. The act of surviving, of challenging your fears and surviving, breaks your reality, because then you realize that all of these fears were an illusion, right? So let's talk about some other reasons why you want to be alone, right? And it's that in life you're alone a lot, and I'm gonna talk about how to be alone essentially. You know, like how to what practices to develop. Obviously, it's through meditation, because meditation is the ultimate act of being alone, and also through solitary confinement. But like, you know, like God forbid you go to prison and you get on solitary confinement, and in prison, the ones that you fear the most are the ones that are comfortable with being in solitary confinement. Like, can you see how much strength that gives you when you're able to be alone? A lot of people fear death a lot more than being placed in the room all by themselves. All right. So, in life, you're alone a lot. I don't know if you noticed that, right? For example, if you look at the train systems, I'm gonna put up a graphic up that you can see, right? Like a little graphic. And if you guys do not enjoy that, you guys can just ask me for your money back, and I'll give it back. I have never, ever not said no to a refund, right? But these courses are incredible because they tackle, if you're single, it's for the psychological game of attraction. Natural chemistry is for women who are in relationships and want to improve it. And nice girl is more about assertiveness, which will allow you to keep what you have. This is like a bunch of, if you ever want to work with me and you want to know exactly what I teach, this is it. It just doesn't get any better than that. So click on the description down below. You could purchase it right now, and I'll see you guys inside. If you look at the train, you notice that most of the train, when you start a train from like either Brooklyn or the Bronx, you notice that the trains are alone. They start alone. But then as they progress to Manhattan, new trains begin to merge and they begin to run on the same track. That's what happens when you get older, right? All of a sudden you start making friends, and then you start getting to Manhattan, and now you have a lot of friends, right? Now you're a teenager, right? And then you hit Times Square, and that's the prime of your life when you have most of your friends. And then all of a sudden you start going down and down and down, and the further outside of Manhattan you go, which is the further, quote unquote, you go from your youth, all of a sudden the train tracks begin to look a little bit more lonely. And then you're at the point where all of a sudden that one train that you've been with since you almost started, it leaves you, and now you're on your own track, and you're about to finish the train ride, right? And it's very similar to that, like with life, right? You start off alone, you grow up with your mom and dad, you slowly start making friends, you make a lot of friends, and then there comes a point when you have a lot of friends, and then like just like the trains, you're gonna end up alone eventually, because that's just part of life, right? I mean, that's just I'm like, that's just part of it. We're gonna go to a quick commercial break. All right, people. So if you haven't had a chance to purchase any of my courses, which is, I don't know how you haven't after watching all of these videos, I'm giving you guys an opportunity to purchase all of them now at a bundled price, right? By purchasing it, instead of paying $4.93, you guys can pay $3.94. So that means you get Nice Girl, that means you get the psychological game of attraction, that means you get natural chemistry, and that means you get a bunch of other bonuses, all at a 20% off discounted rate, right? Or if you guys do not want to purchase all of the bonuses, you guys can just get the bundle where you get all of the courses without the bundles for just $2.34. You want to be able to accept that through learning to be comfortable with being alone, right? Because once you accept that inevitable reality, you lose the anxiety that is usually humming in the background, similar to the sound of the refrigerator. You only notice it once it goes away. And when you allow yourself to let go of that anxiety by accepting it, and through developing a practice to be comfortable being alone, like, you didn't even notice how much weight you were carrying. You were carrying so much weight that all of this time you didn't know that you were just afraid to be alone. You were just afraid that you couldn't be with yourself. And this is the second thing, is that you need to like yourself, right? You need to like yourself. And the reason why is because if you cannot spend time with yourself through being silent, through being alone, I'm gonna show you some studies that talk about this actually. If you can't spend time with yourself, it means you just don't like yourself. It's as simple as that. Why? Because, It's very easy to like yourself when you're around people. And the reason why is because when you're around people, you're never really yourself. When you're around people, you are part of the social force, and you're just one part of this large organism, which is the group that you're in. In fact, you're so not yourself that you actually even lose. You stop behaving like yourself. You start making different decision making. People get more violent. People get more risky, take more risk when they're in a group setting. People get more violent when they're in a group setting. People start acting more irrational when they're in a group setting. People completely lose part of their personality because we're social animals, and that's what makes us so good. We see what other people are doing and we adapt to them. It's like women. A man's sexual drive is the same everywhere he goes. A man wants to fuck as much as he wants to bang in China, where it's conservative. He still want to bang at the same rate if he goes to Berlin. But women are like this. They see what other women are doing. So if they're around women who are conservative, all of a sudden, she's not gonna hook up with as many guys. But if she sees other women are having a bunch of, getting getting some rizé, all of a sudden their sexual behavior changes and adapts to what they see other women doing. We're social animals, man, and women are more social than men. It's that adaptability, that ability to lose yourself in the group is very important, but it also replaces the self, because you never really spend time with yourself. If you were spending time with your friend as though they were actually spending time with themselves, you might see them cry. You might see them twitch. You might see their head start turning in 360 degree. Like, you might see some crazy shit, right? And the reason why is because there's a lot of to spend time with yourself and to make friends with yourself. It's not like you shake your hand and you're like, oh, I'm friends with myself now. No, what happens is that you start to feel a lot of emotions that you have no words for. You start to feel a lot of abstract emotions. Why? Because those emotions you experienced those emotions first, and you reacted to those emotions when you were a child. And maybe you were a baby, and maybe you didn't have your frontal cortex developed enough to have language. And so you really couldn't make sense of those emotions. And so your brain stored that memory, not in the form of an image or the form of a thought like it usually does. It remembers it in a form of an abstract emotion, because when you were a kid, you didn't know what the hell you were feeling. You were just a dumb baby. So there's an abstract version of yourself, your child self, that has no words, and you can't seek it through words. You can only seek it through allowing experiences to happen. And once those emotions come up, not pushing it away, but feeling it in an abstract way. You get to know yourself in your own body language, literally body language, the abstract language of awareness of your emotions. That is a language. And the more you feel those abstract emotions, the more time you're conversating with your inner self, right? And over time, through meditation, this conversation turns into a peace agreement, where all of a sudden, what you thought was an inevitable war turns into peace. But the only way for you to do that is to not resist it. Why? Because two things happen when you're alone, right? Let me show you. The first thing that happens when you're alone is that your creativity rises, your productivity rises, your self-awareness rises, your stress goes down, right? I mean, heck, it's like Isaac Newton during the plague is when he came up with most of his scientific discovering. Helen Keller, after becoming deaf and blind at an early age, was often isolated from others. However, this isolation allowed her to develop her senses and become a prolific writer. Mahatma Gandhi, right, during his isolation, he became the leader of the prominent advocate for nonviolent movement. There's a lot of people who through isolation did a lot of great things. But then if you resist the isolation, if you fight your mind, you could go crazy. You could completely lose your mind. So it's not a matter of whether or not the mind is a predator and it's an evil thing. It's whether or not, how is your attitude towards being alone. It's just that simple. It comes down to your attitude. If you dread what's about to happen, you're gonna dread it. But if you accept it and you say and you take on the challenge of being alone and you just don't resist your mind through meditation, what you'll notice is that it becomes your friend. It actually becomes something that helps you in the long run. Right? So A lot of us just have a lot of anxiety that we haven't addressed. Why? Because we use others and things to distract us from those emotions. They'll come to us before we die. But in the meantime, there is this shadow stuff that you just don't know because you never felt it. It comes out when it's triggered. Oh, this will come out when it's triggered. Oh, yes. And usually when it comes out, you usually tell people, sorry, something got to me. I usually don't behave that way. Motherfucker, that is you. And that is your true self. But the truth is that we all have those emotions festering up inside of us. Parts of ourselves we never got to know. Land that we never conquered. Right? So not spending time with yourself allows things to fester and grow unconsciously. It's like it rots inside of you. And people smell the rottenness, but they don't know where it's coming from. That rottenness is your defensiveness. That rottenness is the part of you that pushes people away, that lacks compassion, that wants to abuse, that wants to hurt, that wants to take advantage of people, that puts yourself first above others. And being with others distracts you from your true self. And you become something else. And you never really get in touch with yourself. Right? So you need to be able, and also you need to be able, by being alone, to show your partners that you could be happy without them. If they can see that you're comfortable with being by yourself, if you're comfortable with being in the middle of the forest in a cabin and chill out for a few days and not go nuts. You see, that's a competition. People compete with that. They're like, why is she so happy not being with me? You know, secretly, every one of your partner doesn't want you to be exuberant when they're not with you. They want you to be a little sad. And that's just a fact. You know, that is just a fact. And if they know that you're able to be alone, happy, there's a part of them that will interpret that as radiating strength. They'll sense that and say to they may not be conscious of it, but they'll just think of you as someone who's confident. Like you get what I'm saying? They're not gonna know that's why they think of you, and that's why they think of you of that. But they're just gonna give this general impression of strength that emanates from your being, because you are happy alone. They know you could be happy alone, so they ask themselves, "What do I have to offer them?" My dog is about to bark. Watch, because the people are here, right? And this insulates you from all the bullshit that life usually throws at us that makes us bitter. And this empowers you. This allows you to grow. When I learned to be alone, people, the world opened up to me. Because before I used to be afraid of being alone. I used to be afraid of not living in a big city. I used to need every amenity from me. When I began practicing and going to silent retreats, all of a sudden I realized there was nothing to fear. And in fact, I should feel excitement instead of fear. Boy, do I now love being in isolated locations, reading a book, meditating. And you could and you could develop this fearlessness to isolation through meditation. When you develop a taste for meditation, people, you want to meditate in different places. That's one of the things that I noticed is that, wow, I want to be able to meditate here. I want to be able to meditate in this place. I want to be able to meditate here. Isolation is not something to dread when you practice meditation more consistently. So this is what you could do to practice meditation more consistently. Stop putting a timer saying I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. That just creates anxiety, and you're only thinking about the time when meditation time is over. Do this instead. Go to your phone or get a stopwatch. This is how much I did today. And just do this instead. Okay, let me sit down and meditate. You meditate and you're like, okay, how many minutes did I meditate? Oh, wow, I meditated for 15 minutes. That's pretty cool. But do not put a time. Don't say how long you're going to do. Just sit down and say, I'm going to meditate until I feel this way. I'm going to meditate until I'm too tired. Or I'm going to meditate until I can't do no more. What you will notice is that you can actually meditate for a longer period of time. Try it this way. Meditate for 5 minutes. Say you're going to meditate for 5 minutes and record how anxious you felt to finish the meditation. And then sit down and meditate for as long as you can and record and write down how anxious you felt and how much were you thinking of time. You'll notice that you may meditate longer in the second one, and it was less stressful. I'm telling you, people, this is actually that's something that I teach in my upcoming course, Emotional Mastery, where we're gonna talk about the art of being alone, people. And yeah, so that's how you do it, man. Look, man, it's a lot of women don't like being alone because they're just needy as hell, people. You know, you practice this, what I just told you, master the art of being alone, and you'll notice that life just happens. Things will fall into place. It's just that simple. It's just that simple, people. All right. Anyways, I want you guys to attend my seminar in London at the end of July. It's going to be about nonverbal communication, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be one of my favorite seminars. Oh my God. This is going to be content you never heard before on this channel, people. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, that's right. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Instagram. And I'll see you guys next time.